Hey, thanks for tuning in to this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube or you are listening on your favorite podcast app. In today's episode, we're going to be covering some of the basic objections that we get when we're talking to people about getting clean and sober. Now, if you're an addict or an alcoholic that is considering getting sober, chances are these are objections that you're going to give us when we talk to you on the phone. And if you're a parent or a loved one of somebody that is getting clean and sober, just know these are oftentimes the objections that we hear oftentimes that they are going to use to try and not get clean and sober, not go to treatment. So take a listen to these objections, see if they resonate with you in any sorts of way, and we're going to help you understand why these objections are not a good reason to get sober. Enjoy the show. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Destiny, also known as D-Dog.
What's up, everyone?
First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, D-Dog?
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm fabulous. It's Friday.
What are you drinking?
Celsius Live Essentials Flavor Cherry Limeade.
When did they start coming out with the big cans?
I found these, me personally, I think like 2 months ago. It's a bigger can. And I think instead of the 200 milligrams, this has like 270.
Oh, wow. My heart would really flutter.
Yeah, I try and stick it to one a day.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I just had a Celsius myself. Small can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What flavor?
The guava one.
Oh, it's not one of my favorites.
I drink them all. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't taste like, I don't know, Brussels sprouts. Anyways.
Okay.
Things have been good?
Yeah, things have been real good.
Had a couple questions for you.
Okay.
They are questions that I think need answered. And this is going to be a quick episode, but I think it might help the listener because a lot of times these questions get asked to us, and I want people to understand how we answer them whenever we're talking to potential clients or potential family members. But let me ask you this. When you're talking to a potential client or a potential family member, and when I say client, somebody that is actively wanting to get sober,
right?
What are some of the biggest objections that they have as you're talking to them? Because, and let me kind of pave the way here.
Okay.
A lot of times people call in, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'm just, wanting to learn more about your program and what you guys have to offer. And as we're going through that process and we start having conversation with them, oftentimes whoever the person is that called in will start having objections and reasons as to why, okay, I can't do this right now. And then it's like, well, you called us first off. Mm-hmm. But what would you say like 2 or 3 of those are? And I want to see if your head's where I'm at.
Work is a big one. I can't take that much time off work. I have to get back to work. Another one is, I guess, it depends on the person. There's so many. I'd really have to sit there and think about it. Work, probably, I would say, number one. Objections for us, like let's say when I'm talking about the program and kind of explaining like what PHP looks like and stuff, potentially being on lockdown and not being able to go anywhere. I'd really have to think about that one, actually. Why? Well, I want to know what's going through your head.
The reason that I brought that up is because a lot of these phone calls, a lot of the conversations that we have, they're very similar. Everybody's situation's unique in the sense of their living situation is obviously different than somebody else's. Some may have kids, some may not have kids, some may have a career, some may not have a career. Some may be living on their own, some may not be living on their own. but there's always a commonality in the objections that they give us. And you hit the nail on the head, and I think we can dive into this a little bit deeper, but the first one being work. Mm-hmm. I just had this call actually earlier today, and one of the big objections that this particular lady is having, now she is actually speaking on behalf of somebody else, so she's reaching out for somebody else, and one of the objections being she just got a promotion in her job and she's not going to want to leave her job. Mm-hmm. To my response is, well, is she making, $250,000 a year? No, gosh, no, she's not. Probably, I don't know, maybe $20 an hour.
Yeah.
To my response is, okay, we're in a position now to potentially a $20 an hour job is going to determine whether or not this person gets clean and sober and whether or not they go into treatment. And that's not a good metric to go by. Mm-hmm. And even if she was making $250,000 a year, because we've seen people making more than that have gotten to the point where they don't care because it doesn't matter the amount of money that you make. If you can't get sober and stay sober, you're not going to have that job long term. So having work as being one of the main objections to seeking treatment can be one of the most detrimental things to getting sober. And realistically, work is generally the last thing to go before somebody actually takes the plunge to getting sober. Now, the issue with that is if you approach an employer and say, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z, I need to go get help, yada, yada, yada. In most cases, now I'm not an attorney, Destiny's not an attorney, but we've seen this happen 1,000 times over. The employer has to let you go.
Right.
If the employer comes to you and says, we've noticed X, Y, and Z, and this has happened in your job because of X, Y, and Z, therefore we're getting rid of you, you're a liability, so on and so forth, that's up to their discretion. They can do that. So if you get fired from your job because you are a drug addict or an alcoholic, you can't blame anybody else but yourself.
Right.
If you go to your employer and you're upfront, you're honest with them, and you tell them what's going on, most cases, they have to protect your job because you're covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, again, referencing the fact that we're not attorneys, don't take that as legal advice because it's not. That's just been the experience that we've had with people because oftentimes they're afraid to go to their HR director and let the cat out of the bag. They just kind of want to sweep it under the rug. And that's going to be in most employers that, I'm not saying that's going to be the case across the board because if it's some, small business and there's 3 employees and it's you and whoever, maybe they will fire you. I don't know. But most corporate settings and jobs that are career, employers that are established and stuff like that, you're covered. So anyways, what do you got?
Well, so, and that, as far as the biggest one, job, most definitely. And what I tell people is really from my personal experience. When I was, using and drinking, job after job, eventually I got to a point where I just didn't care and really stopped going in, or I went into work under the influence and lost the job that way. So I tell people first and foremost, if you don't get the help that you're seeking because you called in to us, whether it's for answers or just to talk, eventually that job is not going to be as important. It's always going to get to that point. I've seen it over and over and over again. And it's all about the honesty and communication of letting your job know where you're at. A lot of people, and actually our insurance through work, if you lose that job anyways, you lose benefits for any sort of health care. So I like your input on going and being honest and telling them, because I've never seen, at least in my experience, and I'm not saying it's never happened, but in my experience, I've never heard of anyone's experience saying that their job told them they weren't allowed to go get treatment.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, it'd be foolish for them to say that. It really would. And going back to the insurance aspect of it, if they do fire you and you do lose your insurance, it makes things much more difficult for you to get help. Mm-hmm. And if you do want to try and maintain your insurance, you have to go on Cobra, and that's going to cost you $500 to $800 to $900 a month.
Yes.
So it's just a very messy thing. Don't let work be an objection to getting treatment. The next one that you had brought up, or I don't know if you brought it up, but I think I did, was really the family dynamic, the family unit, kids, children, stuff like that. Good.
The family?
Yeah, having kids. Hey, Destiny, I love what I hear about your program. Sounds great and everything, but you know what? I honestly can't see myself leaving my kids for, X amount of time, whether that's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months. I just can't see myself doing it.
I have heard that, and it's important that someone gets the help that they need, because this disease affects family just as much as it affects us. We talk about that in the program, and you start lacking as a parent. At least I've heard in people's experience. And it starts affecting your kids, it starts affecting your family. And a lot of times the family members have no idea what's going on, what to do. They have no information on drinking or drugs as far as dealing with an individual that struggles with it. So it's important to not if you're a single parent, that's different. We can try and navigate and talk and see if anyone can watch the kids, but it's just like the job. Don't let family get in the way of you getting sober, because they're being affected just as much as you are, and it's only going to continue to get worse. And I hear that in just about everybody's experience that I talk to when family's involved.
Yeah, I like the aspect that you brought up about the single parents. So single parents, this is a little bit different, because obviously it makes things a lot more difficult for you. But it doesn't mean that there's nothing that you can do. There's definitely things that you can do. But as far as married people with children, chances are, if you've gotten to the point where you're reaching out to us, or anybody for that matter, you're to the point where you're not being of utmost service to your family. Mm-hmm. And your substance abuse, your addiction has affected you and the family dynamic so much that you would honestly be doing them a huge favor by going away for a period of time. Mm-hmm. Family members call us rather often, and they're frustrated, they're angry, they're mad, they're sad, mm-hmm. because they see the destruction, they see what's going on. And the addict or the alcoholic themselves oftentimes thinks that no matter what, they need to be there. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. We have hundreds of examples of married people, of a husband and a father, or a wife and a mother, that they make the conscious decision of, you know what, I'm going to set everything aside, including my children, and I'm going to go take this time for myself. We have a girl in here right now who's an example. She has 3 kids.
Yep.
And she has such a phenomenal story in the sense of she's traveled a lot because her husband's in the military. And actually, we should see if she'd be interested on coming on. Her husband's in the military. They've traveled all over the place because she's a military wife. Mm-hmm. And she raised the kids, and the father obviously plays a part too. But she needed treatment. And she comes to us, and I remember her saying, I'm taking all the time that I need. It doesn't matter. And her kids they're in, I think, like 8, 11, and 13 or something like that.
That sounds about right.
And she said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I know my kids are there. I know they miss me. I miss them dearly, but I need to take this time for myself, because if I don't, I'm just going to put myself in a situation that I'm not going to be prepared for. And lo and behold, I'm just going to start drinking again. That's an example of somebody that is putting herself first, and it's selfish to the outside world. It looks selfish. Like, how can you do that? How can you leave your kids and she's going to be with us for 4 or 5 months. Mm-hmm. How can you leave your kids for that long? And the reason that you can leave your kids for that long is because when you do enter back into their lives, you're going to be that much more strong. You're going to be a much more better mother, a much more better father. Your kids are going to notice a vast difference in everything about you. Your spouse is going to notice a difference. And it's altogether very beneficial for the family unit as a whole.
Right. You made a really good point. Going to treatment and working on yourself is really a better deal and so much more for everyone involved, really, in that person's lives, not just family, friends as well. And I always say it, when you work inward, right? Like when you work through, I don't know, any sort of trauma, healing yourself, whatever, the more that you work on you inside to out, it's going to reflect everything in your life. So you get to show up and be that mother that you wanted to be, or husband, parent, sister, uncle, whatever. The longer that you stay and work on yourself, the more better that you get to show up and be that woman or man that you've always wanted to be in your family's life.
Yeah. That's just another objection. I tell people this all the time. This needs to be the most selfish time of your life. And the reason that it needs to be the most selfish time of your life is because you owe it to yourself first and foremost, and you owe it to everybody else around you. Now, there will come a time that selfishness needs to, the switch will flip, and now it turns into selflessness. It's less about me and more about everybody else. Mm-hmm. And when people can get to that point that they're of service to other people, and even in reflection of the 12-step program, when you get to the 12th step, it is now about being selfless and helping other alcoholics and helping other addicts and stuff like that. And it goes the same with families. Take the time that you need because you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family. But lo and behold, at some point in time, you're going to be in a position to where you gotta, now it's time to give back to your family in ways that you hadn't before.
Right.
So, all right, last one, and this is a big one. Destiny, I love the program. I love everything that you had to say about it. Sounds great. I really would like to do this, but man, I can't see myself leaving and going, 1,500 miles away. That's really far. I'm here in Pennsylvania and I don't know. I don't want to go to Florida. I really don't want to do that. My family's here. Everything that I know is here. I don't want to do that.
I speak again from personal experience on that one. Sometimes it's good to get away with zero distractions. You 100% can focus on yourself, and it gets you out of your comfort zone. They say that growth is in the uncomfortability. You're here. And it's 100% about you. Your drug dealer's not around the corner. You can't call them to come pick you up, or that bar that you always hang out at isn't right down the street or anything like that. Sometimes it's good to get away and just start fresh. Not only that, man, I've heard it so many times that people come down here, maybe they've been to treatment in another state, but recovery and treatment is down here. It isn't like anywhere else in the country. And I hear that from people all the time. It's not permanent. Like, we were just talking about with family. If you have a family to get back to, or a career to get back to, this isn't permanent, but you come down here for you by yourself, zero distractions, and then you get to go back, and continue on with your life in a much better position than when you left.
Yeah. Geographical change is, in my opinion, one of the most beneficial things that you can do if you're afforded the opportunity and the ability.
Mm-hmm.
Reason being everything that you just said. There's no good reason to stay where you're at unless you can't leave. If you're court mandated and you can't leave the state, that's obviously different. But even then, sometimes there's ways to circumvent that. Again, not an attorney, not encouraging that, but it's definitely worth looking into. Family, stuff like that. Again, not good reasons. It's worth a conversation. Financially, this is something that oftentimes, can have some impact, because if you don't have health insurance and you don't have any money, sorry, you're not going to probably be able to travel and go out of state. But if you do have health insurance, or you do have money, or you have both, and you have a family and you have a job and you have all these things, you can travel, you could still go out of state.
Mm-hmm.
Why I believe it's extremely important. Again, all the reasons that you just said. It gets you out of your stomping grounds. You know where you drank, you know where you use drugs, you know the people that you hang out with. The family dynamic could be not good for you. You're in a toxic relationship, you're in a toxic situation. Your environment just isn't conducive for recovery. It's not conducive for sobriety. I'll speak example of myself growing up in Pittsburgh area. I traveled to Florida to get sober. Best thing I could have done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did that because who doesn't want to go to Florida? I'm like, hell yeah, I'll go. Might as well. Hindsight being 2020, the reason that it was very beneficial for me is because Tony's Lounge wasn't right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I drank. That was my watering hole. My friends weren't here. When I came to Florida, my drinking buddies and all my drinking friends were in Pennsylvania. The people that I met in Florida, the people that I surrounded myself with, they were all sober people.
Mm-hmm.
You are who you surround yourself with. If you're in an environment that's conducive for sobriety, it makes getting sober a lot easier. If you're in an environment that is not conducive to sobriety, doesn't mean that sobriety is not there. It's just you're not going to look for it.
Right. Right.
If you're in that environment, it makes things a lot more difficult. So if you have the ability to travel and to make a geographical change for a period of time, it'd be in your best interest to do so.
Well worth it.
Yeah.
Well worth it. 100%.
So, those are just a few objections that we get all the time, and there's plenty more that we could go into, but, for the sake of time, I think I wanted to do this episode because it's necessary. So any final thoughts?
Just don't let objections get in the way of getting sober, getting clean. And more than likely we've been through these same things. We've had these same thoughts, whether it was a job, work, family, we can talk about it. We can help you navigate it. Somebody will be there to help you through it, but don't let it get in the way, of making the best decision for you, and getting sober really is all I got.
All right, D-Dog. Well, that is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. And please go to Facebook and join our support group, Real Recovery Talk Support Group. Go there, hit join or invite or whatever it is, and we'll let you in, and we'll see you over there. That is it. We will see y'all later.